The sound of metal against bone isn't something you forget. Neither is the sight of your little sister crawling across a cafeteria floor while 300 students pretend not to see. Jake Sullivan stood frozen in the doorway of Westfield High's cafeteria, his Marine Corps dress blues still pristine from the memorial service he'd attended that morning. He'd come to surprise Maddie for lunch, their first meal together since his return from Syria. What he found instead was a scene that would haunt him more than any battlefield memory. Madison Sullivan, 16 years old and paralyzed from the waist down, was dragging herself across the grimy linoleum while her custom wheelchair lay in pieces. Around her, above her, towered Chase Garrett, Westfield's golden boy quarterback, his Letterman jacket catching the fluorescent lights like armor. Still playing detective, cripple? Chase's voice carried across the silent cafeteria. Maybe next time you'll mind your own business. The rage that flooded Jake's system was different from combat adrenaline. This was personal. This was family. But as he stepped forward, his trained eyes caught something the other students missed, the way Chase's hands trembled despite his bravado, the unnatural dilation of his pupils, the sheen of chemical sweat on his neck. This wasn't just teenage cruelty. This was something else. Maddie's single quotes S fingers found purchase on a table leg, and she pulled herself forward another foot. Her face remained eerily calm, but Jake knew that look. Their mother had worn it in every video message from Afghanistan. The mask you wear when breaking isn't an option. Jake? Maddie's voice cut through his fury. She'd spotted him, and in her eyes, he saw not relief but warning. Don't? But sometimes, don't isn't an option. Sometimes you come home from war only to find the enemy followed you back. 3 weeks. That's how long Jake had been stateside, trying to remember how to be a brother instead of a weapon. 3 weeks of watching Maddie navigate her new reality with a grace that made his own struggles with PTSD seem trivial. She never complained about the wheelchair, never mentioned the pain that shadowed her movements, never asked why God had taken their mother in Afghanistan and left her, trapped in steel and leather. He'd been planning this surprise for days. Drive down from Fort Hood, take her to lunch at that BBQ place she loved before the accident, maybe catch a movie. Normal brother-sister stuff. The kind of simple pleasures that had kept him sane during 18 months in hell. The morning had started with promise. He'd attended Sergeant Morrison's memorial, another good Marine lost to an IED, and somehow the ceremony had given him clarity. Life was short. Family was everything. The demons in his head could wait while he spent time with the only family. He had left. The drive to Westfield had been therapeutic. Windows down, Texas sun baking away the Syrian cold that still lived in his bones. He'd even stopped at H-E-B to grab those sour gummy worms Maddie loved, the ones their mom used to hide in care packages. Finding her wasn't hard. In a school of 3,000 students, the girl in the wheelchair was always easy to spot. What he hadn't expected was to find her like this. Someone help her. A voice cracked through the silence, a freshman girl with more courage than sense. Shut up, Emily, one of Chase's teammates growled. Unless you want to be next. Jake processed the scene with tactical precision. 3 primary threats. Chase and 2 teammates, all wearing Letterman jackets, all displaying similar signs of chemical enhancement. Secondary concerns. At least 6 other football players scattered throughout the cafeteria, potentially hostile. Tertiary. The complete absence of faculty, which meant this was either terrible timing or orchestrated. His sister had stopped crawling. She sat upright now, back against a pillar, that same eerie calm masking whatever storm raged inside. In her lap, she clutched something, a worn notebook Jake recognized instantly. Their mother's field notes from her last deployment. You know what your problem is, Madison? Chase stepped closer, his cleats clicking on the floor like a countdown. You don't know when to stop digging. Just like your mom. The temperature in Jake's world dropped to absolute zero. Their mother, combat nurse Janet Sullivan, killed in action. Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. I'd attack on her medical convoy while trying to reach wounded Marines. Jake had been 2 provinces away, had heard the explosion over Coms, had known before the official word came down that his world had just gotten darker. But Chase Garrett, this small-town Texas high school quarterback, had no right to speak her name. No right to, "My mom died saving lives." Maddie's voice was steady, stronger now. "Yours is killing them." Chase's foot connected with a piece of the broken wheelchair, sending it skittering across the floor. "Careful, Gimp. Accidents happen. Just ask your dad about that scaffolding." The scaffolding. Jake's mind raced. The accident that had put Maddie in the wheelchair had happened while he was deployed. A construction accident at the new stadium, official report said. Faulty equipment. Tragic timing. Maddie had been there taking photos for the school paper, documenting the booster club's crown jewel. $20 million of Texas excess, built by the company Chase's father had connections with. She'd fallen 30 feet, broken her L2 and L3 vertebrae, severed her spinal cord. The doctors called it a miracle she survived it all. Except now, watching Chase's reaction, seeing the way his teammates shifted nervously, Jake wondered if accident was just another lie he'd swallowed because the truth was too terrible to consider. "You pushed me," Maddie said quietly, and the cafeteria seemed to inhale collectively. "I remember now. The medication, the trauma, it blocked it out. But I remember. You were there. You and Marcus and Dylan. You pushed me." Chase's face went through a transformation that confirmed everything. The cocky mask slipped, revealing something desperate and dangerous underneath. "You can't prove anything. My dad made sure. He caught himself. But the damage was done." Jake had heard enough confessions in interrogation rooms to recognize one. But before he could move, before his trained muscles could spring into action, another voice cut through the tension. "Actually, she can prove it." Sarah Mitchell stepped out from behind the lunch line, her phone held high. Former cheerleader, current school newspaper editor, and according to the gossip Jake had overheard, Chase's ex-girlfriend. The one whose previous boyfriend had died of a heart attack during summer training. "I've been recording everything," Sarah continued, her voice shaking but determined. "Not just today. For weeks. Ever since Brett died. Brett Hoffman." Jake remembered the name from news reports. Star running back, full scholarship to UT, found. Dead in the locker room, cardiac arrest at 17. Natural causes, the medical examiner had ruled. Case closed. "You little bitch," Chase snarled, and that's when Jake saw it, the moment Predator became prey. Chase's hand went to his Letterman jacket pocket, fingers closing around something inside. The movement was subtle, practiced. How many times had he reached for whatever chemical courage lived in that pocket? "Chase, don't." One of his teammates, Marcus, grabbed his arm. "Not here, man. Too many witnesses." "Witnesses?" Chase laughed, high and unhinged. "Look around, Marcus. Nobody sees anything at Westfield. Nobody ever sees anything." He was right, in a way. The cafeteria held 300 students, but most had found somewhere else to look. The wall, the ceiling, their phones. Anywhere but at the disabled girl on the floor and the boy who'd put her there. It was easier that way. Safer. But not everyone looked away. Rosa Hernandez, the cafeteria worker who'd served these kids lunch for 15 years, stood by the kitchen doors with her phone out, recording. Deputy Tommy Chun, the school resource officer who just returned from a suspicious bathroom break, had his hand on his radio. Emily, the freshman who'd spoken up, was crying but still watching. And Jake Sullivan, Force Recon Marine, survivor of 18 months in hell, was done being a witness. He moved with the economy of someone who'd learned that wasted motion got you killed. Not rushing, not threatening, just closing distance with inevitable purpose. The football players noticed, of course. Predators always recognize bigger predators. "You must be the brother," Chase said, trying to reclaim his bravado. "The war hero." "PTSD's a bitch, I hear. Makes people see things that aren't there. Do things they regret." It was a clever threat wrapped in false sympathy. Chase was smarter than he looked, or maybe his father had coached him on how to handle situations like this. Paint the combat veteran as unstable. Create doubt about any testimony he might give. "You know what's interesting about PTSD?" Jake kept his voice conversational as he reached Maddie, kneeling beside her while keeping Chase in his peripheral vision. "It doesn't make you hallucinate. It makes you hypervigilant. Makes you notice things other people miss." He helped Maddie sit up straighter, his hands gentle, but his eyes never leaving the threats. "Like the way you're all sweating in a 60-degree cafeteria. The way Marcus keeps rubbing his chest like it hurts. The way Dylan's nose has been bleeding for the past 5 minutes, and he doesn't even notice." Dylan's hand went to his face, came away red. "What the Trembolone X?" Maddie said quietly. "Mixed with something else. Something to make it stronger, more addictive. Mom saw it in Afghanistan. Soldiers trying to become superhuman. It works for a while. Then your heart explodes." "Shut up." Chase pulled something from his pocket. Not the syringe Jake expected, but a knife. A tactical folder, illegal on school grounds. But then again, so was assault. "You don't know anything." "I know you killed Brett." Sarah stepped closer, her phone still recording. "I know about the underground lab beneath the new stadium. I know your father's been importing from Mexico, cutting it with God knows what, and selling it to half the team. And I know," Maddie added, steel in her voice, "now, that when I got too close to finding out, you tried to kill me too. Pushed me off that scaffolding. Made it look like an accident." The knife shook in Chase's hand. Around him, his teammates backed away, the pack unity fracturing as self-preservation kicked in. Marcus was openly crying now, blood seeping from his nose too. Dylan had sat down hard, clutching his chest. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Chase's voice broke, and for a moment, Jake saw him clearly not a monster but a kid, destroyed by his own father's ambition, poisoned by the very thing that was supposed to make him great. "We were just supposed to win. Just supposed to bring home another championship. Nobody was supposed to die. But they did," Jake said quietly. "And more will, unless this ends now." Chase looked at the knife in his hand like he'd never seen it before. Then at Maddie, still on the floor, still clutching their mother's notebook. At Sarah with her phone. At his dying teammates. At the future he'd already lost. "My dad said no one would believe a cripple," he whispered. "Said, even if you remembered, who'd take your word over mine?" "Everyone." Rosa Hernandez spoke up, her accent thick with emotion. "My nephew died from this poison. 17 years old. Heart attack at 17. I believe her." "I believe her," Deputy Chan added, his radio crackling to life as backup arrived. "I believe her," Emily the freshman said through her tears. One by one, voices rose from the crowd that had been silent moments before. Students who'd lost friends to accidents, who'd watched teammates change, rage out, collapse during practice, who'd been too scared to speak until someone else went first. Chase Garrett, golden boy of Westfield, star quarterback with the $1 million arm and $5 million future, fell to his knees. The knife clattered away. Behind him, sirens wailed as the real police arrive, not the locals on Coach Garrett's payroll, but state troopers Deputy Chun had quietly called. Jake gathered his sister into his arms, lifting her easily. She weighed nothing. This girl, who Carried so much. Let's get you out of here, he murmured. My chair, she protested weakly. We'll get you a better one. One that can't be broken by cowards. As he carried her toward the exit, Maddie looked back at Chase, now surrounded by paramedics trying to save his teammates. I would have helped him, she said quietly, if he'd asked. If any of them had asked instead of ... That was there. Mother in her, the healer's instinct that transcended personal hurt. Jake had lost it somewhere in Syria, traded it for survival skills and a talent for violence. But Maddie had kept it, even after everything. They passed Sarah Mitchell, still. Recording, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Maddie told her. Brett would have wanted... He tried to quit, you know? The stuff. He wanted to get clean, but they wouldn't let him. Said he knew too much. Now everyone will know, Jake promised. No more secrets. Deputy Chun met them at the door. Ambulance is here for your sister, and federal agents are en route. This is bigger than just Westfield. The DEA's been tracking this pipeline for months. Months? Jake's voice could have cut steel. And how many kids died while they tracked? Chun had no answer for that dot outside. The Texas sun felt like benediction after the fluorescent tomb of the cafeteria. Jake settled Maddie gently on the ambulance. Gurney, staying close as EMTs, checked her for injuries beyond the obvious. I'm okay, she insisted, then looked at her brother with eyes too old for 16. But you're not, are you? He wanted to lie, to play the strong protector. But she'd earned better than that. No, but I will be. We both will be. Mom would have been proud, Maddie said softly. You didn't hurt him, even though you wanted to, even though he deserved it. Jake thought of all the times overseas when violence had been the only answer, when being a weapon had kept him and his brothers alive. But this wasn't Syria. This was home. And maybe, just maybe, there were other ways to fight. She would have been proud of you, he corrected. Speaking truth when everyone wanted you silent. That takes more courage than any battlefield. More sirens filled the air. Through the cafeteria windows, they could see chaos students being escorted out, football players being loaded into ambulances, men in FBI windbreakers setting up a perimeter. The empire of Friday night lights was crumbling, and all because one girl in a wheelchair had refused to look away. Jake? Maddie clutched his hand as the ambulance prepared to leave. What happens now? He thought of the long road ahead trials. Testimony, death threats from a town that worshipped football more than justice. He thought of his own demons, the nightmares that would come harder now that he'd found a new war to fight. He thought of their mother, buried in Arlington while her daughter fought battles she'd never imagined. Now? Jake squeezed her hand. Now we finish what you started. We make sure Brett and the others didn't die for nothing. We burn it all down and build something better. Together? Together. As the ambulance pulled away, Jake heard his phone. Buzz. A text from an unknown number. You have no idea what you've done. This doesn't end with Chase. Your sister should have stayed quiet. He looked back at the school, at the empire of secrets built on children's bodies, and typed back. Good. Let them come. We're not running anymore. Because sometimes the real war isn't overseas. Sometimes it's in your own backyard, wearing a Letterman jacket and hiding behind tradition. And sometimes the strongest warrior isn't the one with the gun. It's the girl who refuses to let her broken body break her spirit. The battle for Westfield had begun. And for the first time since coming home, Jake Sullivan knew exactly where he belonged. Standing beside his sister, facing whatever came next. Together. The hospital room smelled like every other military medical facility Jake had known. Antiseptic. Fighting a losing battle against human fear. But this wasn't Landstuhl or Walter Reed. This was Westfield General. And the girl in the bed wasn't another wounded warrior, but his baby sister, small and fierce against white sheets. "Stop looking at me like I'm dying," Maddie said without opening her eyes. "It's just bruises and a mild concussion. I've had worse from physical therapy." Jake forced his fists to unclench. Through the window, he could see unmarked federal vehicles filling the parking lot. Whatever Chase Garrett had started in that cafeteria had awakened something much bigger. "The doctor wants to keep you overnight for observation," he said. "The doctor can kiss my Madison Grace Sullivan." Both siblings turned to find Rosa Hernandez in the doorway, still wearing her cafeteria uniform, still clutching her phone like a lifeline. Behind her stood Deputy Chun, looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 hours. "Sorry to interrupt," Chun said, though his eyes said he wasn't sorry at all. "But we have a problem. Chase Garrett is missing." Jake's hand moved instinctively to where his sidearm would be, found only empty air. Old habits. Missing or running. Both, probably. His father posted bail an hour ago, local judge, old football buddy. By the time the feds realized what happened, both Garretts had vanished, along with about 6 key players from the team. "They're going for the lab," Maddie said, pushing herself upright despite Jake's protests. "Under the stadium. They'll try to destroy evidence, cover their tracks." "FBI's already en route," Chun assured her. "Full tactical team." But Maddie was shaking her head, fumbling for her mother's notebook. "You don't understand. Mom wrote about this similar operation in Kandahar. Military-grade performance enhancers. Being tested on local fighters. When the lab was compromised, they didn't just destroy evidence. They released everything. Chemical cocktail turned the city block into a war zone. 37 dead." The room went silent except for the steady beep of monitors. "Why would your mother document that?" Rosa asked softly. "Because she was building a case," Jake answered, pieces clicking together in his mind. "She wasn't just a combat nurse. She was investigating. Someone in our supply chain was selling medical-grade enhancers to the Taliban. And when she got too close," Maddie finished, "our convoy hit an IED. Just like when I got too close, I fell off scaffolding." Jake's phone buzzed. Unknown number again. "Stadium. Midnight. Come alone or she dies next time." He showed it to Chun, who immediately started making calls. But Jake's mind was elsewhere, remembering his mother's last video message. "If anything happens to me, protect your sister. She's stronger than she knows, but that strength will make her enemies." "I'm going," he said. "Like hell you are." Maddie grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "This is exactly what they want. You, alone, in their territory." "She's right," Chun added. "Let the FBI handle." "The FBI doesn't know the stadium like I do," Jake interrupted. "I helped install the security system 2 summers ago. Needed money for college. Before I enlisted, I know every entrance, every blind spot." "Then I'm coming with you," Maddie declared. "You can barely sit up." "I don't mean to sit up. I need to think. And you need someone who understands what we're looking for." She held up their mother's notebook. "These chemical formulas, I'm the only one who can identify them quickly enough to matter." Jake wanted to argue, wanted to lock her somewhere safe until this was over. But looking at her face, their mother's determination, mixed with their father's stubbornness, he knew it was pointless. "Fine, but we do this my way. When have I ever listened to you?" Maddie managed a ghost of their old sibling dynamic. There's a first time for everything. By 10 p.m., Westfield felt like a town under siege. Federal agents had cordoned off the high school. The local news ran continuous coverage, interviewing shocked parents who never saw this coming, and students who always knew something was wrong. The hospital had discharged at least 12 football players, all showing signs of long-term steroid abuse. 3 were in critical condition. Jake pushed Maddie's borrowed wheelchair through empty streets, Chen flanking them despite official orders to stand down. Rosa had gone home to pray, but not before pressing a small wooden cross into Maddie's hand. For protection, she'd said. It was my nephew's. Sarah Mitchell had vanished after giving her statement to the FBI, but she'd sent Maddie a file, dozens of videos, dates and times of transactions, conversations about packages and testing. Brett Hoffman featured in many of them, growing increasingly desperate as he tried to escape the web that would eventually kill him. He was a good kid, Maddie said quietly as they approached the stadium. Tutored me in calculus after the accident. Never asked for anything in return. The $20 million monument to Texas football excess loomed against the night sky, its lights dark for the first time Jake could remember. Even in summer, those lights blazed for camps, practices, community events. Now it looked like what? It truly was a tomb. Motion sensors are disabled, Chun observed, checking his phone. Internal cameras, too. Either the feds did that or Chase's father still has override codes. Jake finished. Chun, you don't have to do this. You've already risked your career. The deputy checked his service weapon. My cousin played for Westfield 5 years ago. Dead at 22, enlarged heart. I've been waiting for this chance. They entered. Through the maintenance tunnel Jake remembered from his installation days. The air grew thicker as they descended, chemical smell mixing with something else, desperation, maybe, or death. Jake, Maddie whispered, pointing to marks on the concrete, claw marks. Someone tried to escape from down here. The tunnel opened into a sub-basement. Jake didn't remember new construction, hidden beneath legitimate foundation work. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, revealing a sophisticated operation. Lab equipment, packaging stations, distribution maps, covering 5 states. Jesus, Chun breathed. This isn't high school dealers. This is cartel level. No, Maddie corrected, studying labels with growing horror. This is worse. Look at these compounds. They're mixing veterinary steroids with combat stimulants, adding synthetic opioids for addiction. This isn't about making athletes stronger. It's about creating dependent customers who'll do anything for the next dose. A sound echoed through the space metal on concrete, rhythmic and wrong. Jake pushed Maddie behind a storage rack, motioning Chun to flank left. The sound grew closer, and with it, labored breathing. Chase Garrett stumbled into view, and Jake barely recognized him. The golden boy was gone, replaced by something monstrous. Veins bulged black beneath his skin. His eyes were crimson where they should be white. In his hand, a sledgehammer dragged sparks from the floor. Knew you'd come, Chase slurred, blood running from his nose. Hero complex, runs in the family. Where's your father? Jake kept his voice steady, calculating distances and angles. Gone. Left me to clean up. Always leaving me to clean up. Chase laughed, a wet sound that ended in coughing. Gave me one last dose. Said it would make me strong enough to finish this. Chase. Maddie rolled out from cover, ignoring Jake's hiss of warning. You're dying. Whatever he gave you, it's killing you. Let me help. Help? Chase lifted the sledgehammer with inhuman ease. Like you helped Brett? Asking questions, making him doubt? He was going to the feds. We had to. You killed him. Not a question. Dad killed him. I just held him down. The admission came with more blood, darker now. Said it was for the team. For the legacy. For Westfield. Some legacy. Chun stepped out. Weapon drawn but pointed down. How many others, Chase? How many kids did you poison for a trophy? All of them. Every single player in 3 years. Win at any cost, right? That's what you people wanted. Championships. Glory. You didn't care how we got there. He wasn't wrong, Jake realized. The whole town had worshipped winning, never questioning the price. Parents who bragged about their son's sudden muscle gains. Coaches who looked away from obvious signs. Doctors who signed clearances without asking hard questions. But she asked. Chase pointed the hammer at Maddie. Little crippled bitch couldn't leave it alone. Had to play detective like her mommy. What do you know about my mother? Maddie's voice was steel. Chase grinned, teeth stained red. Dad told. May, she found out about the first lab, the one in Afghanistan. Threatened to expose the whole network. Military contractors, CIA black funds, all of it. So they killed her. Made it look like enemy action. The words hung in the air like poison gas. Jake felt the world tilt. Everything he thought he knew shifting into new, horrible configurations. His mother hadn't died a hero. She'd been murdered. By her own side. You're lying, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Chase pulled a phone from his pocket, threw it at their feet. Checked the messages. Dear old Dad kept everything. Insurance, he called it. Maddie grabbed the phone with shaking hands, scrolling through years of encrypted messages. Her face went white. Jake, oh God, Jake, it's all here. Mom's investigation, the threats, the order to neutralize, they killed her. The rage that filled Jake then was unlike anything he'd felt in combat. This was pure, distilled fury, not at an enemy, but at a system, a conspiracy that had taken their mother and tried to take Maddie too. Where's your father? He asked again, voice deadly quiet. Airport, private jet to Mexico. As a compound down. There runs the whole operation. Chase swayed, hammer dropping from nerveless fingers. Supposed to meet him after I burned this place down. The chemicals, Maddie said urgently. If he's got incendiaries down here mixing with these compounds. Boom! Chase finished, falling to his knees. Big enough to level the block. Timers. Already running. 10 minutes, maybe less. Chun, get her out, Jake ordered. Not without you, Maddie protested. I'm not leaving. Jake was already moving, combat instincts taking over. I need to find a device, see if I can disable it. You need to live, Chase gasped, surprising them all. Both of you. Someone has to tell the story. Make it mean something. Chase, Maddie started. I'm already dead. Have been since the first injection. He looked at her with eyes that were, briefly, terribly lucid. I'm sorry. About the chair. About your mom. About all of it. Tell Brett ... Tell him I'm sorry. Brett's dead, Chun said gently. I know. Doesn't matter. Still need to say it. Chase Garrett, terror of Westfield High, collapsed forward and didn't move again. 17 years old. Destroyed by his father's ambition and his town's hunger for glory. Movement upstairs, Chun. Reported. Radio crackling. Multiple vehicles. Not feds. Dad's cleanup crew, Maddie realized. They're not here to save evidence. They're here to make sure we burn with it. Jake made a command decision. Chun, take Maddie up to North Tunnel. I'll buy time. Try to disable. No. Maddie's voice cut through his protests. Mom died alone. I won't let you do the same. This isn't a debate. You're right. It's not. She pulled something from beneath her jacket, their mother's service pistol, the one Jake thought was locked in his truck. Either we all leave or we all stay. Where did you... I'm paralyzed, not stupid. Now stop wasting time and find that bomb. The next 5 minutes passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Jake located the incendiary device military grade, because, of course it was, Coach Garrett had connections everywhere. The timer showed 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Can you disable it? Chun asked. Maybe, if I had tools, time, and no one shooting at us. Footsteps echoed from above, which we don't have. Then we run, Maddie decided. But first, She grabbed a laptop from one of the workstations, yanking out its hard drive. Evidence. Mom would want evidence. They made it halfway up the tunnel before the cleanup crew found them. The first shot sparked off concrete inches from Jake's head, combat reflexes saving him. He returned fire while Chun covered Maddie, the narrow tunnel becoming a killing funnel. "Timer!" Maddie shouted. 90 seconds. Jake did the math. They wouldn't make it, not all of them. Someone would have to stay, hold the tunnel, buy time. "Go," he told Chun. "Get her out." "Jake, no!" Maddie reached for him, but Chun was already moving, dragging the wheelchair despite her protests. "Tell her story," Jake called after them. "Tell Mom's story. Make it matter." He turned back to face the oncoming killers, settling into a shooter's stance. This was what he knew. This was what he was good at. Protecting his family, even if it cost everything. The first man rounded the corner and died before he could fire. The second got a shot off, pain blooming in Jake's shoulder. He kept shooting. 30 seconds now. 20. Then, impossibly, gunfire erupted behind the cleanup crew. Federal agents poured in from another entrance, having tracked the vehicles. The tunnel became chaos, and in that chaos, Jake ran. He burst from the maintenance door just as the first explosion rocked the stadium. The ground heaved, throwing him forward. The second blast was bigger, chemical-enhanced, turning night into hellish day. The third brought the whole structure down. $20 million of corruption collapsing into rubble. Jake found Maddie and Chun 100 yards away, all three watching the inferno that had nearly claimed them. Federal agents swarmed the scene, but Jake only had eyes for his sister. "You stayed," she said simply. "You're my sister." "Where else would I go?" She reached up, taking his hand. "We need to disappear for a while. Garrett's connections, the people who killed Mom, they'll come for us." "I know." Jake looked at the burning stadium, at the federal agents, at the town that would never be the same. "But first, we tell the story. All of it. Together?" "Together." The next weeks passed in a blur of testimony, grand juries, and media circus. The story broke nationally small-town football program hiding international drug ring connections. To military contractors, murder disguised as combat casualty. 63 arrests across 5 states. Congressional hearings. The task force's Coach Garrett was captured trying to cross into Mexico. He rolled on everyone to save himself names, dates, accounts. The network unraveled, but Hydra-like, Jake knew it would grow new heads. It always did. Maddie became the face of the investigation, the brave girl who'd risked everything for truth. She handled the attention with their mother's grace, never flinching from hard questions. The wheelchair, once a symbol of vulnerability, became her strength. Who could look at her and not believe? Jake stayed in the shadows, watching for threats. 3 attempts on Maddie's life were quietly prevented. 2 men who asked too many questions about their location disappeared, courtesy of some Marine brothers who hadn't forgotten loyalty. They buried Chase Garrett on a rainy Tuesday. Only his mother came, a broken woman who'd lost her son long before. He died. Maddie insisted on attending, laying a single rose on the coffin. He was a victim too, she said when reporters questioned her. We all were. 6 months later, they sat in a small cafe in Austin, new names and new lives carefully constructed by witness protection. Maddie had her GED and was starting pre-med. At Jake worked security, close enough to watch over her, but far enough to let her breathe. Got an interesting email today, Maddie said, sliding her tablet across the table. Anonymous tip about another lab. This one in Oklahoma. No, Jake said immediately. We're done. We're safe. Are we? She gestured to her wheelchair, to his shoulder that still ached where the bullet had grazed. How many other chases are out there? How many other Bretts? How many mothers investigating alone? That's not our fight anymore, isn't it? She pulled out their mother's notebook, pages worn from handling. She didn't stop when it got dangerous. Neither did you in that tunnel. That was different. No, it wasn't. It's exactly the same. Bad people doing bad things because good people look away. She met his eyes, and he saw their mother's fire burning there. I can't look away anymore. Jake sighed, knowing he'd already lost this argument. If we do this, and I'm not saying yes, we do it smart. No heroics. No unnecessary risks. Agreed. But we do it. Why? Haven't we sacrificed enough? Maddie was quiet for a moment, watching students pass on the street outside. Normal kids living normal lives, unaware of the shadows that haunted them. Because somewhere out there, she said finally, another girl is about to fall off some scaffolding. Another boy is about to take his first injection. Another mother is about to die for asking questions. And if we don't help them, who will? Jake looked at his sister, broken but unbeaten. Wounded, but still fighting, and felt something he hadn't experienced since Syria. Purpose. Okay, he said. Tell me about Oklahoma. She smiled, their mother's smile, and began to talk. Outside, thunder rumbled over Austin, promising storms. But in that small cafe, two siblings planned their next war, not with guns and bombs, but with truth and testimony. The cleanup crew had failed to silence them. Coach Garrett had failed to break them. Even death had failed to stop their mother's mission. Now it was their turn to carry the torch. Maddie reached across the table, squeezing Jake's hand. Thank you for staying. Always, he promised. No matter what comes next. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message was brief. We know where you are. Jake showed it to Maddie, who smiled grimly. Good. Let them come. Because the Sullivan siblings were done running. Done hiding. Done letting the monsters win by default. Thought the war for Westfield was over. The war for justice had just begun. 2 years later, Maddie rolled across the stage at UT Austin to accept her bachelor's degree in biochemistry. Jake watched from the audience. No longer checking every exit. No longer expecting threats. The Oklahoma lab had been their last mission after that. The feds finally took the threat seriously enough to dismantle the entire network. Janet Sullivan would be proud. The dean. Sod, shaking Maddie's hand. They'd established a scholarship in their mother's name, funded by seized cartel assets. Poetic justice. After the ceremony, they visited their mother's grave at Arlington. The headstone read, Warrior, Healer, Mother, but Jake knew it should have said, Hero. Real heroes didn't always die in combat. Sometimes they died asking uncomfortable questions. Medical school next, Maddie said, placing fresh flowers. Johns Hopkins accepted me, following in her footsteps, making my own, but carrying her spirit. Jake nodded, understanding. They'd both found their paths through the darkness, his protecting others who couldn't protect themselves. Hers healing those who'd been broken by systems meant to help them. She saved us, you know? Maddie said quietly. Even dead, she saved. U.S. Those notes, that training, she knew someday we'd need them. She always was 3 steps ahead. They stood in comfortable silence. Two survivors who'd learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies, it's refusing to become them. The war never really ends. But neither does hope. And in Texas, no more children fell from scaffolding.